Hello, everyone. It's Charlton, and there's a story here from Doug Papa, the Baltimore Post-Examiner, who has done many articles on the Las Vegas shooting, his own investigative work. He's a former police officer, detective, I think, from Baltimore, actually, as well as he worked as, I think, head of security operations in the casinos for like the last 20 years. I don't know his entire background, but he's a very serious person, and he has an article here from today, and it's an exclusive interview with somebody. His name is Luis Castro. He's the former brother-in-law of the Mandalay-based security officer, Jesus Campos. And he also has a Twitter account where he has been chronicling himself under the Untold Stories LV. Things that he claims are not being reported in the mainstream media and that are being hidden from the public, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, in this Twitter feed, I don't want to show all of it, and I don't know how much other Vegas creators have already been talking about this. I suspect at least some, to some degree. I see Wego is following him, and I think has been for some time, and I think maybe some people have already been talking about, the discrepancies with the public account of what has happened and some of the stuff that's in this Twitter feed, because it goes back to August 15th of this year, and where he's tweeting stuff, room keys of a place, the Vdara, where supposedly Jesus Campos was holed up, being paid for by MGM, and members of his family, of which he is one, and Jesus, I think their grandparents. He is Jesus Campos' former brother-in-law. So Jesus Campos' brother, George Quintero, who's mentioned in this, was married to his sister, and they I think they divorced very quickly after once they were married. But there's bombshell after bombshell in here. And I'm just going to assume like nobody has already discussed these and just discuss some of them. And then there's some that are new, that aren't on the Twitter feed. So I just was shocked, absolutely shocked to find out some of these things. The first thing is he basically says that Jesus Campos says that that MGM was aware that he had, a crazy amount of luggage up there and the guns that were in his room. Essentially that MGM was aware of this, and they looked the other way because of his high roller status. Now, I think basically he's asked about that in this specific case. I don't know if this was allowed in the past or not. That doesn't seem to come up in this interview, and it's a very long interview between Doug Papa and this guy, Luis Castro. But that's what Doug Papa opens up with in his first statement. Luis Castro said his former brother-in-law, Mandalay-based security officer Jesus Campos, told him that MGM Resorts International knew that gunman Stephen Paddocks had suspicious amounts of luggage and guns in his room, but security neglected it because of his high roller status, which is huge. The other thing is, the other thing is that according to this person, Luis Castro, he says that Jesus Campos told him he knew Stephen Paddocks, and that many Mandalay Bay employees knew Stephen Paddocks on a first name basis just because he was a very frequent gambler there, a semi high roller person there with perks and things like that. He was just known to the staff, and Jesus Campos himself personally knew of him. So before I get into the specifics of this interview, let me just present some of my own ideas quickly, very quickly. One is, I had this idea before. I presented this, I think, on a couple occasions. I know I did. That the hotel was aware of this person, Stephen Paddocks, ahead of time. And basically, for whatever reason, even my ideas actually conflict with some of the things that are being presented here. I think the reason I thought maybe they were aware of him ahead of time is because things had soured with the hotel, because he had lost money with the hotel. Maybe he had become a liability to the hotel. I don't know. That kind of contradicts some of the things that are mentioned in this interview. But my idea was that the hotel knew of him ahead of time, so that as soon as this began, they knew pretty much instantly who it was and where it was coming from because of that. But at the same time, that puts them in a pickle that the faster they neutralize him, the more it acknowledges that they knew of him ahead of time, which increases the legal liability to their culpability big time. And so basically my theory was that after he was neutralized, and he is neutralized fairly fast. I know there's elements of this where you have people in the lower hallway standing down, not moving, proceeding, but there's other parties that are bearing down on the person. Basically once the threat is neutralized, then the cover-up goes into full DEFCON 5 mode. And I'd be willing to indulge. I would, even though I completely agree that it was Stephen Paddock, and I don't know that his motive is exclusively because of gambling losses, or he's just a psychopath, or they're a combination of that, or whatever. I don't know what his motives exactly are. I do think losing the money is a contributor amongst just hating humanity. But I'd be willing to indulge the idea that he didn't kill himself and that somebody else neutralized him. I'd be willing to indulge that, I think, for sure. All right, let me continue with the interview. But in this interview, some of the highlights is that basically his brother-in-law says that Jesus Campos was compensated for his non-disclosure agreement, and that he was there's cash money. I mean, he doesn't specifically get into like dollar figures, but he does say he was paid in some way, and that he does specifically say he was gifted 2 condos, gifted 2 properties, 2 condos in Henderson, Nevada, outside of Las Vegas, that are gifted to him, not just properties that he stayed at while this this whole investigation was going on and on. They were actually gifted to him, and this is something else. But he was also sort of holed up at a place and kept secluded from everybody, and under security and basically monitored by MGM, living at the Vdara, which is a hotel joint venture between MGM and some other company in Las Vegas. And he lived there for a short period of time while the investigation was in the media was in full DEFCON 5. And Luis Castro, the former brother-in-law, another family member, stayed at the same hotel, the Vdara, as well. And that picture here is actually Luis Castro's room, and this is Jesus Campos right there. This is Jesus Campos' brother, George Quintero, who was married to Luis Castro, the person who interviewed with Doug Papa's sister, and that's how he knows him. This is that picture. This is from his Twitter feed. All right. And according to this individual, Luis Castro, I don't know how long they were at the Vdara, but he also has, and some of these Twitter posts are from a while ago. For instance, the one of the room keys of the Vdara is from October 15th of 2018, this year, but it's from nearly 2 months ago. So. But it also has the business card of the director of hotel operations of the Vdara that he claims he was given that card, basically saying to him that if you need anything, just anything else, call this lady. Forget her name. It's mentioned in the interview with Doug Papa, and she'll take care of it. And all this was comped. And I think Jesus Campos's grandparents were there. And his niece is in that picture. You can't see her face, and so forth. So they were just living there, because Doug Papa specifically asks him in this interview, "Are you sure? Are you saying that he just stayed at these condos that you're talking about, or was he gifted them? Are these the condos at this Vdara, or are they somewhere else?" And he's saying, "No, we were just staying at this. These were just hotel rooms. That's not the condos, and the condos are something else. But they were literally specifically." Gifted to him, put into his legal name, and they're his properties now." And he said his names are redacted, on the I don't know how if that's possible. It could be, so that basically as when you go to search property records, which is a very public thing, anybody can at any county website. Sometimes you have to request the documents and so forth, depending on what county you're looking at. Sometimes the names could be redacted or kept private for whatever reason. And he's saying that they would be redacted. I don't know if that's true or not. But Doug Papa presses him on the topic, and he says no. And then he also asks him, he asks him, are you absolutely sure that he said that MGM was aware that Stephen Paddock had guns up there, and or was that just something you think he thought? And he says no. He says flat out, verbatim that is what Jesus Campos tells him. There's many shocking things in here. So he goes on to say, and this is BP, Baltimore Post-Examiner, Doug Papa asking, did he actually tell you that Mandalay Bay knew about the guns in the room prior to the shooting, or is that just something you think he said? And Luis Castro, the former brother-in-law of Jesus Campos, says, no, that's like I said. That's verbatim, exactly what he told me, BPE, Baltimore Post-Examiner. And he told you that he knew Stephen Paddock, who Stephen Paddock was before the shooting, right? Castro, yes, yeah. He said a lot of people knew. MGM staff knew. He was a predominant gambler there. As far as these condos, did he just say that? Could he be BSing about that? Castro, no. They paid him out for the injury. And then, like I said, gave him properties to stay at. They gifted him. He was paid out long before the victims. He was gifted property. The story that he was put up at the vdara will pique interest. Castro, I have the valet tickets. Everything was comped. Valet was comped. The food was comped. Like I said, I had. There were 3 rooms in total, including my grandparents staying there. Everything was comped. There he's talking about the vdara. The pictures, here, like I showed you before. But he goes on to press him about the condo to specifically, ask him. He says, did he? I'm sorry, right here. So BP, Baltimore Post-Examiner, when you say he got condos, are you talking about the rooms at the vdara, or did they actually give him? ? Castro, no, those aren't condos. Yeah, he was gifted like condominiums, an actual place. You mean they gave it to him, or they just let him stay there? Baltimore Post-Examiner. Castro, no, they gave it to him. BPE. So you're telling me that MGM Resorts International gave him 2 condos in Las Vegas? Castro. Yes. BPE. And who owns them? Does he own them? Do you know? Or does MGM own them? Castro. Yeah. No, it's in his name. BPE. Do you know where they are? Castro. Yeah, I know the addresses and everything, but BPE. What are the addresses of the condos? Castro. I'll give it probably to an attorney but I don't want to give his address out, BP, but you're saying his name's on the condos. He owns them, ? Castro, yeah, it might be redacted. Everything on his name has been redacted, so good luck finding them. All right, so, this last thing right here, and I think I showed you the room keys. This is... I just couldn't believe it. I think I don't know if people are already discussing this or what, where he says that the Ellen interview was staged, and that, everyone kind of feels like it was, had this, it was just spoon-fed to him, and that it wasn't a normal hard-hitting interview where you have to ask questions and are given follow-up questions, and it's just a hard interview of what happened that night. It wasn't that way. Everything was very delicate and stuff. Everyone knows about Ellen's deal with MGM and her slot machines being in their casinos and all that. The marketing partnership that they have. But in here, it literally specifically says that it was actually taped beforehand. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't. When you watched it on on LvUntold or anything. It looks like it's in a live studio audience, and I think they're saying here that it wasn't, and that they were reading off of teleprompters. That's what he claims. It says, and I'm going to start up here in the photograph of his vdara room keys that he posted on Twitter. There is a vdara business card belonging to Karen Abel, Director of Hotel Operations for vdara. I asked Castro why he had her business card. He said it was provided to him by vdara staff in case they had any problems while they were staying at the vdara. They were to contact Karen Abel. According to Castro, Campos told him that his appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show was staged and taped prior to airing. Castro said Campos told him they were reading from a teleprompter. I just can't believe this stuff, man. It's just absolutely crazy. So, now he's done his interview with him. It was very long, and I didn't want to read it. It would just bore you. You can go read it yourselves, obviously. But then he goes on to just qualify everything that he was given personal information from Luis Castro so that he could be vetted by Doug Papa. Castro told me that Campos is still an employee of MGM, but he no longer works at the Mandalay Bay. He said Campos worked in security at another MGM property, but does not work on the casino floor. Castro did provide me with personal information on his and Campos's family members that I did confirm during my vetting process. Castro also provided other photographs that he had taken of Campos, and the inside of the vdara to the Baltimore Post-Examiner that he did not post on his Twitter account. Other information that was gleaned from my interview with Castro was not covered in this article. My investigation is pending, and those results could be the subject of future stories. Absolutely insane, man. Can't believe it. Again, I don't know how much people have already discussed about this stuff, and I've lost track of it. And where I stand, how I feel about everything, and everything. I just stated it. And this confirms some of the stuff that I had suspected. That it was Stephen Paddock. I don't want to say never, but I believed it's him for a long time. But I kind of had this feeling from early on, at some point, fairly early on, that the hotel knew of him ahead of time. And they knew, somebody at the hotel, management at the hotel, knew as soon as this began who it was. But also by responding to it in a way to neutralize it as quickly as possible, acknowledges knowing who it was ahead of time, which has very serious legal liability implications. And that's where these things just go completely out of control in terms of not releasing anything, not showing any videos, and so on and so forth. And that is the story there for now, man. Amazing. Absolutely amazing to me. Well, thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.